Hello everybody, this is my Colorado History final exam. My name is Allie Sims and these are the 5 most important topics from Colorado history. So starting off with my takeaway message, which is throughout Colorado's history, there have been many moments that showed great growth, whether it be westward expansion, mining, the world wars, or even tourism. Colorado has developed for many years to become the state we know and live in today. The first of my 5 topics that I'm going to be talking about is the Santa Fe Trail. So the Santa Fe Trail is one of the first major routes which connected Missouri to Santa Fe. It was a huge trade route and brought people west. It really helped facilitate westward expansion. It also created a trading network for many, many nations to be a part of and really helped those nations to thrive and bring people west. Now, specifically for the Santa Fe Trail, there were 2 different routes. There was the Cimarron Cutoff and the Raton Pass. Now, this let people kind of choose what they wanted from their journey, but overall, the Santa Fe Trail really did a lot to bring people west to the state we know today as Colorado. Next is going to be mining the Rockies. Now, this is a little bit later and starts in about 1858 with Pikes Peak Gold Rush. Well, the Pikes Peak Gold Rush was the first stage of what is really known as the Gold Rush. And it really starts establishing these mining camps, which are going to develop into huge cities today. The second thing is the Colorado Mining Belt, which happens right after for another about 10 years, which is the second stage of the Gold Rush. But it's also bringing in a lot of silver mining. And this is going to really develop in Colorado. From silver to then coal, stuff like that. It's going to really bring lots of people over and further develop Colorado's economy. And lastly, we have the Cripple Creek Gold Rush, which was the last stage of the Gold Rush, and was also the site of the first major miner strike in 1903, which really brought the beginning of unionization and strikes, and lots of things that are going to really affect workers in Colorado for many, many years to come. Next, we have the road to statehood. The road to statehood was not always easy for Colorado, but in 1860, we became a territory, though we were trying to become a state. So there were 3 different attempts to become a state in 1860, 1864, and 1865. But the 2 attempts first failed because a lot of the people had issues with the taxes that becoming a state would bring, and they didn't really want that. But eventually, they were able to pass it in 1865. However, President Johnson vetoed it. Now, from our book, A Colorado History, the 10th edition, a quote says, "Johnson had no particular desire to increase the majority of radical Republicans in Congress. And despite assurances from Colorado Republicans that they were loyal to his administration, he had reason to suspect that they were wavering." So overall, Johnson really didn't want other people to oppose his administration, so he vetoed Colorado becoming a state, but then it was later passed in spite of this, and Colorado became a state. Next, we have the Great Depression, which really had a great impact on the farming and agriculture kind of sector of Colorado. So it kind of started with the Homestead Act of 1862, which basically said that American citizens could claim 100-acre parcels of land for them to farm on, which really brought people to Colorado, brought people to start living here, bringing their families here, and so they could farm. It really brought so much more produce, so much more food, but eventually with the amount of farming and people who weren't necessarily quite as educated about how to farm, it really started to hurt the land. And so with that came with a removal of prairie grass and mechanized farming, which really, really hurt that soil and that grass, which then led to a loss of crops because those plants, those crops and food were not able to anchor into the soil and they weren't able to grow very well. So because there wasn't this soil, this grass, there was really just dust sitting at the top. And we had some droughts, and so there were tons of dust storms that started happening, and that really led to the Dust Bowl. And the Dust Bowl really hurt Colorado and caused people a lot of health problems. So the next part of the Great Depression is whenever we try and start getting out of that depression, really start trying to revive Colorado's economy, and this started with the New Deal. The New Deal in Colorado basically focused on 3 different things: relief, recovery, and reform. So in Colorado specifically, direct relief was given to residents that came in the form of provisions and clothing. Recovery was really trying to educate people on how to farm correctly to try and reduce those dust storms. And then the reform was the action that actually helped the land, which is going to be the Taylor Grazing Act and the Land Utilization Program, which essentially ended the Homestead Act and was the thing that really started to help Colorado's land. Now, despite the New Deal, Colorado didn't really get out of their depression until World War II came. Now, World War II was devastating for a lot of people, but post-World War II actually brought a lot of prosperity to Colorado's economy. So starting off with that, there was a huge transformation of Colorado's economy. Because there was a huge change from agriculture and mining to more things like tourism, outdoor recreation, and urban development, it brought lots of money and lots of infrastructure to Colorado's economy and really helped us to grow. Now with this also came a population boom. More people were just coming to Colorado, but more people were wanting jobs. They were wanting that the landscape that Colorado brought, and so there were a lot more people moving there. And then, of course, the baby boom after World War II. There were just lots more people. And this then led to urbanization, suburbanization, more infrastructure. This can be in the form of highways, interstates, also the time when I-25 was starting to be built, which then allowed more jobs, which fed the economy, and was really just this cycle that really, really helped Colorado to start thriving. So after Colorado's post-World War II boom, really came Colorado in its Cold War era. Now, Colorado was a prime location for military installations and surveillance just because of its many natural protections. There were mountains, and just the landscape in general of Colorado provided a great place for these installations, these plants, stuff like that. Now, in this Cold War era, we also had a lot of space exploration, space discoveries, and things of that nature. And some of those actually happened in Colorado because of the United States Air Force Academy, which happens to be located here. They were educating young people who were then making these space discoveries, which then really led to more space exploration. Now, along the lines of military installations, power plants, stuff like that for the Cold War, really came NORAD and Rocky Flats. Now, NORAD is a military installation, which is the North America Aerospace Defense Command, and it's still located here today. And then Rocky Flats was a plant that developed plutonium cores for nuclear weapons. Now, this is very debatable as to how good or bad Rocky Flats really was for Colorado, but one positive was that it brought a lot of money to Colorado's economy. So this kind of brings us to a more recent time whenever Rocky Flats was closed down. It actually was because of an FBI raid. That was closed down. They were able to clean it all up, and it became this kind of natural area. And that took many, many years, so we're actually kind of at a more recent time in Colorado. So that was my last point, and now I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the sources that I used. So the sources that I used are going to be our book, A Colorado History, the 10th edition, and some in-class lecture notes. So thank you guys so much for listening, and this was my Colorado History final exam video. Thank you very much.